Aloha and welcome to A Word with Ward. I'm Representative Gene Ward and we're broadcasting from the state capitol. Today we have a unique interview. We have a doctor in the house, a veterinarian, and we have the chief CEO and president of the Hawaii Humane Society. Welcome to Pam Burns and Dr. Sue.
Thank you.
How are you? Thank you.
Pleasure having you two here because we're going to talk about feral cats. But before we talk about the cats, let's talk a little bit about Pam Burns' background.
Okay, well,
People want to get to know you before they get to know all about the things that you guys know about.
Well, I've now been at the Hawaiian Humane Society for 26 years, so it's been a long time since I've been there, and it's really been a pleasure and an honor to work at the Hawaiian Humane Society. It's not often when you can have a vocation as well as an avocation, and it's been a wonderful experience for me to be able to be the president and CEO since 1990.
Well, so you love what you're doing?
Absolutely.
And they actually pay you to do it.
They do. They do.
Good point.
They do.
That's why I love being a rep, too.
Got it.
Yeah.
Dr. Sue, you run a clinic for cats.
I do. I'm a practicing veterinarian for 35 years, and for the last 28, exclusive to cats, called the Cat Clinic in Honolulu. And again, I would echo Pam, my vocation and my avocation. My husband used to quote Robert Frost as my vocation and my avocation see as two eyes see as one. So very fortunate.
For you young people, this is a message from two people who love what they're doing and they get paid for it. So make sure you're wired to do the things you do. In fact, people usually say if you're doing what you have a passion for, time goes by, health is not usually a problem as much as it otherwise would be. And that's good. That's encouraged for me even to hear that. That is super.
Yeah.
Let's talk about 1883 when all this began with the Hawaii Humane Society.
Yes, I love our history. It's so we were started here in 1883 in Hawaii, and we were started by a group of concerned community citizens. We were started as a society for the protection of animals and children.
Wow.
So, which is really cool. And we were here to protect animals, children. We were here to protect unwed mothers. We were here to protect those with mental illness. We were started.
Whoa, those are huge baskets of problem.
We were here to protect those that were most vulnerable in society. We were here to create a more humane society in its broadest sense. And we were here, one of our founding members was King Kalakaua. And so when you think of, this organization started as when we were a monarchy, and the wonderful history that we have lived through. And while much of our work for the protection of children has spun off, it was spun off in the 1930s and to Child and Family Services, we still do a lot of work with people. I think people think of us, it's animals that we, we do a lot of work with animals. We do a lot of work with people. We're about animals and people. And I think
I never knew that. That's
absolutely.
why we have this program.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it homeless or is it unwed mothers, or you said it was a generic aid for people, or?
We work with a lot of youth, teaching youth how to be more humane, teaching them about compassion. We work with students in areas that are primarily high-risk areas and with humane education. We also, certainly when we're placing animals in homes, we enrich the lives of those families. But we also do work with homeless. We are working with IHS and the city and county to help people that have been living on the streets and who really want to make that transition into a better life, who are very bonded to their pet. And people will sometimes say, they have why should they have a pet? Oh, gosh, it's the reason to wake up in the morning. It is the reason maybe to have a better life. And it's the last thing you want them to have to give up, right? And so we have worked with partners in the community Catholic charities and to IHS and city and county to help people successfully transition off the streets into a new life with their pets. So yes, we do a lot of work with students and people throughout the community.
It makes perfect sense with the bonding between the human and the feline. I even saw last week there is a robot pet that's come out on the market. and they're supposedly loved. I think they're Japanese,
I
or
think the Japanese have developed.
so
really
have you got any of
yeah.
those? Any of them come to your clinic asking for a repair?
Unfortunately, Representative Ward, I would not be able to do the computer stuff, but I can deal with the live animal things.
How long?
Biologic.
Your clinic. How long have you been doing that?
Since 1988, we opened our veterinary clinic exclusively for cats, and at the time it was a little unusual to have a veterinary clinic exclusively for cats, but I find that it's been quite a journey. It's been quite a fascinating journey.
If we put 1883 together in 1988,
so
what were
100 years later.
the state of the art of cats was never, because the subject today is feral cats. What was going on then, and how did it lead to the point where we are today, where feral cats, in my district, there's at least 5 central points, and I promised my daughter, for the sake of disclosure, we have 2 cats. I'm a jogger, and one followed me home, and she gave it milk, and it's been there 9 years. Our cat Ginger, and Ginger attracted the neighbor's cat, that because they moved away, the cat came and lived with us for Ginger for the last, I think, 7 years. So I'm a cat lover, but the cat population, I get a lot of constituent calls saying, the feral cats are a bit of a problem. And I found between those who love them and those that hate them, it's been a bit of a tug of the war. So let's, in terms of defining the problem, what happened in the interim, how we have these feral, or you call them, what do you call it? Free roaming?
Free roaming. Well,
What's the difference between free roaming cats and feral? I didn't know that was a...
Pam would probably be a better person to answer that question.
Well, let me go back a little bit. How did we get from 1883 to today? So first of all, cats in Hawaii. Cats, we do know, were on the sailing ships. So cats were aboard the big sailing ships all over Asia and the Pacific, and that's probably how they came to Hawaii. We know that
no indigenous cats then.
No, there were a few indigenous animals here in Hawaii. So, but that's so they were introduced along with almost so many other things that came by ship to Hawaii, but they were primarily used on ships as ratters. And we know Captain Cook had cats on his ship as well. We also know that that they, so cats have been here a long time in Hawaii. And to your question, feral versus free roaming. So free roaming cats are those cats. How we define it is those cats that are out in the community. Any cat that's not kept exclusively indoors. And so a free roaming cat population is made up of abandoned cats. It's made up of cats that people let indoor, outdoor, that are own cats. And it's also made up of that, what we would call the feral cat population, which is unsocialized cats that have not been socialized with human interaction. And so the free roaming cat population is what you see when you're jogging or walking about, but it is made up of own cats that people let indoor and outdoor, as well as abandoned cats that people have just left like your neighbor, as well as the feral, unsocialized cat
which
population.
grow up in those cat colonies, or those feral, or the populations of, or segments where they're born into the roaming cat population, I guess.
Well, even the colonies, even the cat colonies are often made up of feral cats, which people are initially taking care of because they're feral, unsocialized. But then other people abandon cats into those colonies because they think that that's an okay thing to do, which is not. And then other cats may be attracted to the colony because there's food availability too. They can sometimes become a magnet to other free roaming cats. So they're hard to decipher, divide up into neat little bundles.
But Dr. Sue, why did they get to be so many of those?
Well, unlike most mammalian species, cats and rabbits have one thing in common. They're induced ovulators. And so when they breed, they ovulate. So their chances of getting pregnant are very good.
Would you say induced?
Yeah, so they're induced ovulators. So the act of sex actually makes them ovulate. So they maximize their fertility, which is why rabbits
you heard
have...
it first time here too.
Sorry.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so there's a neurohormonal link to ovulation. So they maximize their chances to have babies.
Okay.
Very
But
fertile.
in 1883, were they having any less babies than now, or is it by exponentially they've become such a large population that now the abandonment and the feral and the roaming is what has happened maybe in the human population or in the cat population? Which are the two maybe cause and effect, or they're both?
Well, a couple of comments, if I might. One is in comparison to other places, colleagues of mine on the mainland, a couple of things that are unique to Hawaii is that there are no predators for cats. On the mainland, there are coyotes, there are birds of prey that keep feral cat populations down. And also on the mainland, there are winters that can be very cruel to cats. And so that's something unusual in Hawaii. Secondly, though, as far as you say the growing population, I'm not sure that I see a quote a growing population because if we look at the numbers, if you would define a population by the number of cats that are, say, brought into the Hawaiian Humane Society as a temperature.
Oh, good.
As a temperature of how many cats are brought into the Humane Society. Actually, the number of cats that are brought into the Humane Society has decreased over the years. And I'm just going to give you a number from, say, in 1993. We had 20,000 cats that were brought into the Hawaiian Humane Society. 1995 was 21,000, and it's not just a clean shift. We're down, but in last year it was 12,000. The year before it was 12,100, and 2014 13,000. So over the years, actually, the number of cats that have either been irritating enough for somebody to bring into the Humane Society because they were causing a problem, or people didn't want, because these numbers represent either stray cats that people have trapped or brought in, and as well as cats that people no longer want that are of their own. That's a combined number. Those numbers have come down
It's
over
like
the years.
50%.
So from a high
Almost
of
20 some thousand to 12.
And then also the other thing I think that is good to note is that the number of cats, of lost cats or stray cats that come in that are returned to their owner has significantly increased since the cat ordinance was passed in Hawaii in 1995, where we returning less than 1% of stray cats back to their owner is now not great, but 6.5% to 7% of the stray cats are now being returned to their owner because more people are getting their cats microchipped. So, but I think that what you are seeing, may be certain areas where there are colonies of cats that are more apparent, and there's people get irritated.
Hawaii, we got 5 of them in Hawaii.
Right.
Clear.
Or people that are very sensitive about it, or calling, complaining, or maybe a lower tolerance to it. But I'm not sure that I would say that there is an increase of free roaming cats in the community in general.
If you said that there's 20,000 down to 12,000 from those who brought cats in, are people less likely to bring cats in nowadays given the cost maybe of maintaining it? Or is it where the cats are being abandoned for other than economic reasons? Is there an economic variable here, I guess is the question.
Well, people are, we're an open admission shelter, and the only open admission shelter on the island, so we don't turn any animal away.
So if the neighbors at like at the Kokohe District Park, there are probably 150, 200 cats. If the neighbors in that area put the cats in cages and brought them in, you would actually receive them?
Oh, absolutely. We're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we accept all animals. Now the question would be, and so cats and dogs, any animal is considered potentially a property, is personal property. So there are very explicit laws around our requirements for holding animals. So let's just talk about cats and keep those barking dogs out of the picture.
Okay.
But
we're going to talk about cats only.
Yes, and cats only on Oahu, but because we have a cat ordinance. But if a cat comes into our place, and let's say it's not by the owner, so it's not you turning in your cat, but somebody brings in a cat, there are very specific laws in place as far as you start bringing the cat. Is this your cat? If it's not your cat, then it's considered a stray cat. The cat is scanned for microchip. We look to see if it has a notched ear. That's whether it's been sterilized or not, whether it has a collar and a tag.
This is new information also. So a notch in the ear means it's been sterilized.
Yes.
Left ear or right ear?
Left ear for males and right ear for females.
So it's like
it goes either way.
You marry in one, if you're married.
There you go. It's like where you put the flower. Right?
Okay.
And so when you look at, when you mentioned earlier when you see colonies of cats, and we really encourage people to manage and feed colonies of cats out of public view so that they don't become a point of contention. But when you see colonies of cats being cared for, take a look at their ears, and it's just a little nick, or it can be a little clip on the top of either their left or the right ear, and then you can tell whether they have been sterilized or not. And if they are being actively managed. And that's how, when people are managing colonies of cats, they know which ones to trap and which ones that don't need to be trapped to be sterilized.
In any given population, what percentage would be chipped or have the chip inside of the...
Varies.
I would say it varies from population to population. I think the well-managed colonies, like Pam mentioned, are really very different populations. And the ones with a lot of notched ears are usually well managed, and when people abandon animals into these colonies, they're well cared for. Those animals are then taken either to Hawaiian Humane Society or to a veterinarian to be managed and adopted, or to see if someone has owned them previously. So it really varies from colony to colony.
It could be 25%, could be 50%.
That's correct.
But eventually it'll be every cat.
Hopefully every cat will be sterilized before they're allowed to be outside. I mean, that is the law. You were helpful in passing that law years ago. What was the year that the
1995.
95. So we were really in Hawaii one of the, if not the first, mandatory identification and sterilization of all outside animals.
Do we have any idea of the number of cats that we have on the island?
Let me comment on that. Because that's
we know how many got the Humane Society.
Yeah. Because there has been actually some coverage on that, and I'd love to comment. So Word Research, who we have commissioned to do research for many, many years.
No relative of mine.
No. Oh, yeah, okay.
Disclaimer.
Disclaimer. Okay.
Becky Ward has always been. Oh, that's your
She's
wife.
great.
No.
Yeah.
She's good though.
Word Research has done some wonderful work over the years for us, and so we know on Oahu, and this was error rate of about 4%. 16% of the households have a cat on Oahu, as compared to 43% have a dog.
Wow.
Okay, but then, so how many free roaming cats? And there was a number that has been floating around of 300,000, which is an overstated number. But what is important is that when she did this research, that there were about 52,000 people on Oahu that were feeding cats that they didn't consider their own. 52,000 residents on Oahu who said that they were feeding at least one cat that they didn't consider their own. And so
that's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
And then really a lot. And then when they were looking at all these numbers, well, how many cats are you feeding? And there was a number that came out as high as 300,000. However, that a lot of people are feeding the same cat, right? Because I'm feeding Dr. Sue's cat that she might let out, and Representative Ward's cat that he lets out, and the free roaming cat and the feral cat. So we don't know how many free roaming cats there are out there, but we do know that there are 52,000 people on Oahu who feed cats that they don't consider their own. So very unlikely they're getting sterilized, very unlikely they're going to a veterinarian. That's a problem.
Because if there are 400 and some thousand households, and there's 16% of those, that's a lot of cats.
That's a lot of cats.
Even though there's even more dogs, but that's sort of a different...
Yeah, and excuse me, but the cat population, although the cat population in Hawaii is a little bit below the national average, cats are the most popular pet in the United States. So you and your family are in good company.
Yeah.
So the ratio of 43% having dogs is reversed on the mainland? There's more cats?
Well, the number of cats is actually higher. but more people have multiple cats.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I see.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
There
yeah,
are
it's-
more cats than
I
dogs
see.
in families across the United States.
We would never have 2 dogs, but 2 cats we would
Yeah,
have.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
yeah. 2 cats is yeah. So and there, if you take that 52,000 and talk about the number that people are feeding, 1 or more cats, and then if you go beyond that and you think of the number that cats can actually have if they're continuing to procreate,
Unlimited is what you said
the
earlier,
numbers
right?
can go up very rapidly.
Is there light at the end of the tunnel? Is there a solution, or is it just managing the problem? That is the approach now. What's the state of the art, if you will, of feral cats? Even though, as you know, in the legislature in the last session, we had, you abandon a cat, we're going to charge you
Yes.
$1,000. That is,
Yes.
if we see you or photograph you or something. I
Right.
understand there's been a couple of instances, so people know that, hey, they're actually using the law,
Yes.
even though 2 out of probably a few, many more who've done that. Is there light at the end of the tunnel? Do you have a Humane Society or a cat clinic solution, Dr. Sue?
I think it's a complex question with a complex answer. I think the answer is multiple. As a cat family, I would say you have to have your animals sterilized. There's no question about that.
Mandatory.
Absolute sterilization. We have to control the population, and if we don't get outside cats or free roaming cats sterilized, then that's never going to be an issue. I think that that some of the many of the programs that Hawaiian Humane Society has instituted with regards to open admission, and you have a place where you can take a cat if you find them in your yard. You don't want that cat. Don't do some of the horrible things that people have done in the past, but take it to the Hawaiian Humane Society. See if it maybe it belonged to somebody else and it jumped in the back of someone's truck and ended up in Kaka'aka when it lives in Hawaii.
Very practical question. What's the best way to catch a cat to do that very thing? If we're going to if somebody wanted to take a cat to the Humane Society, what do? They have to go down and buy a $50 portable carrier, or what are some of the things that you, after your many years of experience?
We offer traps, and we ask for a deposit, and then we return the deposit upon return of the trap. But they're humane cat traps, and that's really the best way to trap a cat is by you can either buy a trap or you can just get a deposit from us. Get a trap from us, get the deposit. We return the deposit when you return the trap. Trap the cat and bring the cat into us.
How much is the deposit?
It's $100.
So the cat trap is...
It's like this, and then it's got a trap door, so when the cat walks across to get the food, the door behind closes behind the cat.
I see.
And so...
Very humane. Then.
It's very humane.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And then you cover
Absolutely.
the trap so that you don't stress out the cat. We're trying to minimize the stress on the cat. And we
Blanket?
give blanket, towel, and we give you instructions, the person instructions on how to do it. And
So
then-
anybody can do this. Anybody
Yes.
listening can actually
Anybody
get a
can.
trap, trap an animal, bring it in. You said it's open admission, right?
Yep.
Open admission. And the Hawaiian Humane Society, I believe, has a feral cat program where they will sterilize at no charge, microchip for, I think, $5, and that's it.
But
So for
if they
$5,
wanted-
it's the best deal in town.
But if they want to have this Humane Society keep the cat,
Then
they can keep the cat.
bring the cat in.
Yes, absolutely.
Do not abandon the cat. That is really
That-
cruel
okay.
and
It's cruel.
inhumane. Yeah, it's really irresponsible
Yeah.
and against the law.
Against the law, and it's
wrong.
inhumane.
Yes, exactly.
The life of cats that are abandoned is not a good one. They're scared as we can
Are
imagine.
people using that option to do the trapping and bringing them in to the Humane Society, which could then be adopted? Or what's the number of cats that get adopted every year? Is there a-
Thousands and thousands.
Thousands.
And then also thousands are also returned to their owner. That are trapped, lost and returned. And then we also do sterilization of cats for people that want them back. Right, the free roaming cats, that and those are the ones where we notch their ear. And
How much is the sterilization?
It varies from $5 up to $25. So if you're a regular, it's $5, and then if it's at one. So we've had
What does regular mean?
like if you sterilize, I don't know, 3 or 4 cats at a time.
Okay.
Then
Well,
down
if it's
to $5.
this big or this big,
yeah.
extra large.
No. So it goes down to just $5 for the microchip, and then we offer specials for $5. We're always looking, and we do about 2,500 sterilizations a year.
We're running really short of time, but I did have one serious fiscal question. How do you guys get funded? How, since 1883, how have you kept, you got an $8.5 million budget.
Yeah.
Is it the gracious generosity of government, the people, or?
No, the gracious generosity of this community. It really is truly the gracious, this community is, we are a 501c3 charity, and it is through the generosity of Hawaii people that fund us. We have a contract with the city and county for a scope of work that is a piece of the work that we do, but our animal welfare, animal protection work is because of the generosity of Hawaii's people.
Well, that means you have fundraisers and other kinds of things that you've got to be.
Just last Sunday, we had Pet Walk. We had 3,000 people. We had about 1,000 dogs. We had a couple of cats and a couple of rabbits. And
pig?
The dogs are the moneymakers. You can see.
I guess.
Closing comments about where we are, where we're going in terms of the Humane Society or in terms of pets and what people, because there's been a lot of takeaways that you've really given value added to my understanding, and I'm sure some others have not understood as much as I have. Any closing comments before we wrap up?
Oh, I think that the community is their perception of the value of companion animals has really increased since 1883. We started out as working animals, horses and water buffalo, and so much now is around companion animals being cats and dogs and rabbits and birds. And I think that that's just going to continue over the next many years. And expectations has increased, and we're really blessed to be part of that work with this community. And we're fortunate to be part of this great community.
Dr. Sue.
I think to dovetail with Pam's comments about the importance of animals in people's lives, I think we talk in veterinary medicine how when we started, in the 80s, cats and dogs were in people's backyards, and now they're in their beds. So it's a totally different picture now, and 20's the new 10, or 20's the new 10. So they're living longer, they're living better, and manage them, keep them inside, sterilize them, and enjoy them as part of your life, a full life.
There you've heard it from Dr. Sue and Pam Burns from the Hawaii Humane Society. I want to thank you too for your value-added information, and thank you for viewing. I'm Representative Gene Ward with the Word from Ward at the Capitol. Thank you and aloha.